So, Dr. Rakesh, thanks for the question. And before I answer the question, let me take you on our journey. So, Bombay Shaving Company is a 7-year-old startup. It's not a startup anymore. We can say that. But the way our growth has been, like 2.5 years back, we were 1/10 of what we are today. When the COVID started, if our turnover was today, let's say X, we were 0.1x 2.5 years before. And we are growing 90 to 100% year on year. So what the journey from the founders from Shantanu was in a small room, possibly as big as this, to where we are today in office. It's been amazing. So in that kind of a business environment where you're scaling 90 to 100%, where we are in multi-channels. When we say omni-channels, we are we are in offline stores, roughly around 40,000 stores. We are in every modern trade, right from DMart, Reliance, Heiko. We have our own website, which has more than 50,000 orders. We run the largest D2C website in the world for Durex, which is in India. We have our own kiosk. We have a laser clinic. We have our own salons. We also export. We're also in naval canteens. We're getting to CST. So every channel, and plus we are in all marketplaces. All, I mean, you name it, Zepto, Blinkit. We're everywhere. So this is how we define marketplaces or the omni channel. And then you're sitting on a 90 to 100% growth. Plus, the growth comes mainly from your existing products. In any supply chain, the growth is like a casita. So you have existing products in which you have hero SKUs, and then you have NPD. In our business, NPD is almost 20 to 30% of our sales. That means that I have to launch roughly 10 to 20 products every quarter. So in this kind of a scenario where you're growing 90 to 100% year on year, plus you're expanding your retail footprint, and on top of it you're a startup, that means your funds are constrained. मेरे पास पैसा नहीं है. Honestly, we work backwards. This is the cash I'm going to spend in this quarter.
Awesome.
So this is the cash I'm going to spend in this quarter. So from this cash, how much can I plan my buying of goods, and how much would be my closing stock? So these are the multiple factors we use to plan our forecast for the month or for the next month. So one constraint is cash, which is number one. Typically not seen in any other FMCGs. You don't work basis on cash, you work basis on sale. The second factor is NPD, because that is going to give me incremental sales. The third factor is what are the new channels, or which channel is going to give me faster rotation of cash. If demand is going to pay me in 7 days, I might as well service demand and ensure I have stock for him. If exports is going to give me advance payment, because typically exports has advance payment, I might as well divert my stock to exports. And if I'm opening a new store or new EBO mall at a certain place in say Siliguri, I should have stocks for him. So it's a different kind of a reverse working in this scenario, very different than a regular Colgate kind of supply chain where cash is never a constraint. It's always case fill. And besides that, we still track case fill. Case fill is very important. But again, in our channels, if you see a stockist who service the shops, they normally have very high inventory holding. So in the order of priority, they become one of the last people in the chain, depending on where I have to go to. But if you're planning a product promotion, let's say we recently ran a drive for hair removal creams, which is the fastest selling SKU for us. There it became a priority for us. So again, the dynamics, or every month the priority will change, which is a hero SKU for you, which channel is important for me to service, that changes. And lastly, who is going to give me cash? If my B2B business tomorrow generates an order which will give me cash faster, I might as well divert the stocks to him. So that's the overall the way we plan. Lastly, since our business is very seasonal, because like Valentine's Day is coming up, so for us that's a big event. So for me, I have to now plan a lot to make the customized SKUs for those events. So then we do a lot of kitting. I mean, we almost kit more than 6 lakh pieces to 8 lakh pieces per month. So it's again a very customized kind of assortment. You're offering a personalized service to the customers. So again, that becomes a different level of planning. We are getting into very minute SKUs and minute kits. The assortment in our company goes to as high as 800 SKUs. And again, we're talking from a 7-year-old journey across categories ranging from accessories to lotions to face wash to creams to fragrances to deos and whatnot. So again, more than 10 categories, more than 800 SKUs, different channels. Cash is a constraint, cash is a king, and then planning inventory, everything bases that. So that's the way we work.
If I take the same thing across to you, Nilesh, I'm not sure how much of cash is not a problem for you uh, could be truth. But again, if we were to tie this back to getting collaborative planning established across your supply line, uh, and then linking it towards the multiple channels, how do you see that challenge coming through?
Sure, Girish. So what I'll do, I'll try and answer your question, but before that, I'll actually take a little step back, and I'll talk a little bit about what omni-channel is for us, and
Yes. Very near, very necessary.
how do we look at that channel, right? Because all the conversations really start that whether this is a independent channel, do we need to forecast separately for it? I think Vishal or somebody spoke about it, that we need to have a supply chain within a supply chain for it. So, we started at Aditya Birla Group, and specifically the fashion and retail business. We started our e-commerce journey way back in 2015 when the apparel space was just heating up in e-commerce, right? Today, across the industry, I think we are the largest branded fashion play that is available to any investor, to any customer, right? From one of the largest departmental store networks of pantaloons spanning across 6 million square feet to the lifestyle brands of Louis Philippe, Van Heusen, Peter England, Alan Solly, to the international brands like Ralph Lauren, Hackett, Collective, Forever 21, with the designer brands like Sabyasachi, Tarun Teliani, all of these. The play is very, very large. And, when we started off our journey in 2015, we started off with a very clear view that e-commerce is an independent channel with its own set of complexities, with its own set of challenges, with its own set of customer needs. 8 years later, uh, we believe we are slightly wiser. Uh, Given the portfolio that we have, and I talked about the portfolio, I'll just tell you, I think Abhishek spoke about 800 SKUs, that adding to complexity, I'll tell you that in pantaloons alone, we do 200,000 SKUs in a year. Across the entire fashion portfolio, we do upwards of 500,000 SKUs in a year, right? We are wiser, and we've thought that there is no point trying and forecast something individually at an SKU level, at a style level for this particular channel, right? We internally have formed a view that omni-channel is not really an independent channel, right? It's a customer experience. It is very, very quickly changing from online versus offline, online taking share from offline, from the unorganized. Today, if you look at a customer funnel, from awareness to consideration to purchase, it happens across multiple channels, right? So customer doesn't see us as pantaloons.com or Pantaloons app or Pantaloons available on Myntra or Pantaloons available on Myntra or say a Louis Philippe available on any other channel. The customer sees that there is a product value proposition that we have as each of our brands. The customer wants to have a seamless, frictionless, consistent experience of the brand, whether they are interacting with us online or offline, right? And hence, the view that we have gone in with is that we don't look at e-commerce as a separate channel. We're building our play around our Pantaloons app. How do we play a much larger role in the life of customer in his shopping journey within his ecosystem, not just in his shopping journey, not just in his journey to look good, look fashionable, build confidence. We are looking at it as how can we play a larger role. And hence, we don't look at this as a pure commerce channel, and we don't really do a independent individual forecasting for that, right? So that's, I don't know whether it answers the question. And lastly, I'll tell you, Girish, like you said, whether cash is a crunch for us. I think cash is a crunch for everybody. With the kind of expansion that we're doing, I think every business needs more capital, and so is the case for us. It's the same for a startup. It's the same for a large organization like us.
Thanks. Yes, it's one way. It's good that you look at forecast the whole process being channel agnostic, and then look at how do I touch various touch points. But Vinay, you are you are a person who has to ensure that customer delight, because the final time the customer is delighted when you do your part of business. Yes, Pantaloon is there, Bombay is the shaving is there, the product is good, but the experience is when you deliver. And how do you as a service provider look at this omni-channel challenge, and what are the kind of capabilities that you have to build to manage an omni-channel operation like this?
So while we are only quick commerce channel at the
Yes.
front end, but at the back end we have to deal with all the challenges of omni channels, where we deal with like over 300 different brands and manufacturers, and each one of them has a very unique way of working and,
Yes.
And solving for their supply chains. So what we realized was that we will have to be the adaptive part in the game, where we can't possibly change everybody's supply chain, right? So we have to get adopted to everybody's supply chain in their unique way, in the way they are trying to solve problems for the customers, and we will get aligned with them. So we go back to basics. If you see, we essentially look at in three different principles on supply chain. One is that how do we work with our suppliers to bring down the lead times. I think that's and the classic root beers game, taught for ages, and has always concluded that the lesser the lead time, the more efficient will be the supply chain. So now lead time has multiple. We can go into technicals, but there are a lot of small things if you fix. For example, when your planning is done, how fast can you convert it into a purchase order, and how fast can you ship it out to the supplier? Can it become real time, that plan to purchase within second? How fast a supplier can acknowledge that, and then of course then the whole shipment, transportation, etc. happens. But once it comes to your warehouse, how fast can you turn it around into a GRN and put away, and when it's available for the customers in the form of saleable inventory? Now, the first part and the last part is completely within our controls. And can we become best in class in that experience to our customers as well as to our brands who are working for us? The second principle is that, how do we improve our forecasting accuracy? And in the forecasting accuracy, of course, there are technical models where, we keep working on. But the principle we adopted here is that how closer to the consumption can I plan my demand? So lead time actually enables you to do that, but your planning efficiency has to be high. That can it become a single click plan? Now, why should someone run multiple Excel sheets to arrive to a plan? Why can't it become a real time? So when I'm supposed to release a purchase order or schedule a purchase order, can my planning run just seconds before that, so that it becomes even more accurate, right? And the last one is that how agile we can build our supply chain, right? So normally what happens is over a period of time, the rigidity starts creeping in, right? Because people have different expectations in terms of, when the truck will come, the GRN will take 2 hours, and put away will take 4 hours, picking will take 5 hours. Can we become more agile there? That the prioritization happens real time in terms of what needs to be unloaded, when it needs to be unloaded, what needs to be picked and shipped. The more agility we bring in, the better is the availability and better is the experience to the customer. Essentially, with these three principles, what are we trying to solve? We are trying to solve the availability of the stock for the customers within the guardrails of days of inventory on hand. That days of inventory on hand should not exceed this, as Abhishek rightly pointed, that everyone is working under the constraint of the working capital at this point of time, where everyone is trying to optimize that, or how do we become working capital negative, right? To answer the question. So within those guardrails, the days of inventory on hand becomes a very, very critical metric in place, and the availability becomes a counter metric. That availability has to be beyond a certain threshold, and days of inventory has to be below a certain threshold. So essentially, that's what we try to achieve. The fourth element of it is that how fast we can iterate. So that's another learning which came on the way, that don't get hung up to a certain model. There is always a better model. So if we start with a very simple moving average kind of a forecasting model, it may work for certain set of SKUs, but it may not work for certain set of SKUs. Don't hesitate to change the model frequently. The changing the model frequently is a function of how fast can you code it and how fast can you implement it. But every iteration will bring a goodness in terms of the accuracy. The idea is to keep improving the accuracy, or the idea is that how closely can you follow the demand curve in your forecasting. In the hindsight, if you see what was the root mean square error. So that essentially is what we keep trying to solve, and we look at it at a brand manufacturer level, and then we segregate our inventory in terms of the perishability, and there is a very classic grid FMS ABC. So just to conclude my comment, it's going back to basics, and then see how do we use technology and how do we use innovation in supply chain to make it more efficient.
Yeah, what you said essentially makes a lot of sense. A lot of times we become so possessive about the models that we are reluctant to see the limitations of the model. I think the first thing that we teach about when we talk models is that every model has a life and a limitation. You are trying to model something which is changing so fast that you cannot remain stuck. At the same time, we also say that one of the problems that models have specifically is that it brings in stochastic risk. What if the mathematics I have chosen is not the right set of statistics I'm using to model my? So there is a kind of an imponderable that comes there. Ankit, if I come back to you, what has been your experience in modeling? In creating an omni-channel experience supply chain within your organization? What are the kind of challenges and bottlenecks you have faced in the?
Am I audible? Hello. Yeah. So Girish, if I take example of Mondelez, pre-COVID, we were having a very healthy growth, and the management took a very, I would say, during COVID, a cautious gamble on the growth projections, which any $1 billion plus size company would take. And to be very fair, against all odds, the growth has been positive, and not just positive, it has been ferociously positive. So today we are grappling with challenges at all level of management. So there is a challenge for the senior management that they have to take a very quick call, seeing at various demand scenarios to get capex approved. Since we are a global organization, it requires a lot of approvals, etc. And then ensure that the marketing building blocks, the distribution building blocks are able to cater to that. Then the immediate or a medium horizon problem which the mid-level management is facing is there is disparity between various channel growth which is happening, like e-commerce is growing 3x of the country average, and how to get a consensus within the commercial organization, within the supply chain organization, how to get the prioritization matrix there. Then the growth after COVID has been so fast, so dynamic, like a startup, that the capability level of the people who are executing the plans is also lacking right now. So there is a lot of effort which is being done to improve the capability of the people to absorb that kind of dynamic environment, as well as take help of a lot of digital tools or external consultants which was erstwhile absent, in order to help people to bring some sanity in doing this forecasting kind of an experience. Otherwise, if we say traditionally all FMCGs follow a typical SNOP process, you collect a bottom-up demand, you build a consensus around it, you present it to the sales leader, you present it to the country MD from taking any decisions related to margin, etc. But we have seen that post-COVID and in this omni-channel environment, at least in e-commerce, all models are failing. Nobody is able to predict that. So we are trying to divide the problem via segmentation exercise. So we are saying we won't be able to forecast for all the omni-channel customers. So we will pick and choose. So we have done a simple segmentation exercise, put on x-axis the growth and growth potential of the customers. On y-axis, we have put serviceability, variability, and cost to serve on one axis. And then divide our order prioritization. So that is something which is something new for us because it was never there pre-COVID, nor with so many different kinds of channels coming in. So it's all learning on the go, but we are innovating as we see how it goes.
It's a very interesting point that you brought about of collaborative planning. Before I continue again, I would like to invite if any one of you want to have a shot at a question. Yes. Vishal. Ankit, payback time.
No, no. No, it's not a question. I just wanted to add to what Ankit was referring to, because look, in this channel, in this segment, and even for that matter, Vinay's point as well, that it's very difficult to put a right forecasting model for this channel. Yeah, because you really don't are not able to figure out saying what variables are causing to the variability in demand. Yeah, and hence you need to keep tweaking your models. You just can't stay consistent with one model and say this is what I'll always work with. Yeah, and hence in this channel you always have to keep hunting for saying is this model relevant. If not, then you immediately switch to something else and keep experimenting. The other thing which Ankit was alluding to and very much relevant is on the capability stack. Yeah, because that's what really is a differentiator out here, because some a particular technology or a particular work stream which is so relevant now, 6 months down the line we'll realize it's redundant. Yeah, that's how fast this entire ecosystem is changing, unlike the other erstwhile segment where things have been consistent for a decade. Yeah, so capability, dialing up capability and redialing it again to say that okay, what are the changes, what are the tweaks that I need to do is very much relevant to stay in this channel or to stay competitive in this channel. Else life ahead will become a big challenge for everyone. I just wanted to add to his point.
Yeah, thanks. Anyway, yeah, if I could.
Great points from all of the panelists. Just one, I can very much resonate with what Ankit and Vinay are talking about. I wanted to have one question for Abhishek. Abhishek, your point about working capital-led forecasting is something that it's very new. Was this the way that forecasting used to happen even in the bright heydays, or what was the forecasting like at that point of time, and how is it different? Because this kind of forecasting will sort of shun out some of the top customers, right? So how does it work during the heydays, and how is it now working for you? Forecasting.
So from my experience, like 18 years experience, I've never come across such a model. In Colgate, paisa bahut tha, honestly. We never thought about vendor payments. We never thought about that. Sorry, we never thought about payments and all in my previous experience in Colgate or Hutamaki. Because money is a lot. I mean, they're all cash-rich companies. But suddenly when you come to startup, the simple message is, I mean, it's a funding winter is already in. We all know that. The simple message from all our investors is, you need to survive before you thrive. Growth is fine. I mean, if you see all the results of most of the startup companies, the cash burn has gone up 4x. They all have grown by 2x, but the cash burn is 4x. So this is a reality. This is really the sad reality. And suppliers are not going to wait. I mean, you cannot say, oh, we are in a fundraising, help kar do and all. I mean, that's not, relationship can work to a certain point. So once the reality bites, the first thing is what? Cash, right? Any company, cash is the king. And in a startup, the pain is felt very, very acutely. And this pain has to first go down to me, then to my team, and from my team to sales team. And then that's itself is a very cathartic journey. I can tell you that. रोज के झगड़े जो होते हैं कि पहले जो पैसा लाएगा उसको स्टॉक मिलेगा. Can you believe that kind of discussion? Really, you cannot believe. I could not believe myself. Then it becomes the fastest finger first. And honestly, the Monday, Tuesday discussion in office यही होता है कि जो पैसा लाएगा उसको स्टॉक मिलेगा. This is the reality, right? We have 6 months to this funding winter. We need to survive this winter. You may have everything in place, great people, great stocks, सब कुछ है आपके पास, great products, great marketing, but cash. So then once the reality is set in with everyone, after repeated refusals to them, then the backward working starts. Because you cannot exceed a number. The only play you have is from the relationship with supplier key, the payment cycle will keep getting extended. That's a relationship part you have to play. That is, we have to play. But how much? So it's every day. It's a struggle. Every day it's a struggle, and we have to manage and be very vigilant. But the whole problem becomes that when you have multi SKU, multi channel, the complexity is very high. Plus an NPD. So that's a very, very different kind of forecasting, honestly.
Anyone else? Nilesh, if I were to come back to you on, circle back to you, one of the things that also leads to is there is a channel proliferation which is happening, and when channel proliferation happens, there would be some kind of preferences allotments happen there, and especially for someone who is in the fashion business, where when I'm ordering something, probably I like it, but when I see it, it doesn't seem to be what it is, and therefore returns management becomes all the more critical. How do you tie all of these things together to create some kind of sanity in the whole process?
So, Grish, I'll tell you, one of the biggest problems that we see, and I think Deepak also alluded to that in the past, I think in the fashion or the lifestyle segment in general, the returns is the biggest problem that this line of business faces, right? And there is no easy answer to that, and you go back, you look at your data, you look at fraudulent customers, you see there are customers who keep doing it again and again. There are people, you work with your last mile service providers, logistic service providers, you work with them, put in QC guardrails in place, but वहाँ पे कोई एक है जो जुगाड़ ढूंढ लेता है, and they will find a way to return back something that did not belong to you. So leakage is a reality in this market, right? Now, the way that we look at it is that where does customer convenience work in favor versus you putting guardrails around profitability and leakage? That's really the point. And for the longest period of time, no questions asked, refund policies existed. You look at Amazon today, you look at Myntra, everybody has tightened the return policies to 10 days. There are customers who keep doing that again and again, and then you cannot return your product. Even if you've received a wrong product, for example, you ordered for example, a two-piece product, say a kurta and bottom, you didn't get the bottom, and genuinely you didn't get the bottom. When you try to initiate the return with Myntra, they will say that, sorry, you did not, I don't trust you, I will not pick up the product, you please speak to the call center and get the return initiated, right? So everybody is coming around and realizing that this market, where in our bid to drive habits, we've created some faulty business practices, right? And this is where everybody is tightening. I'll just dissect the data a little bit for you, and I'll tell you what happens really. Typically you look at, there is a bunch of customers who would prepay, who would typically use digital means of payment. Invariably, when the parcel reaches the customer, 99% of the times the customer will accept it and he will not send the product back. You will see the returns of these kind of customers in the range of anywhere between 8 to 12%, varies from brand to brand. But that is the typical behavior of this customer. There is a large set of customer on the other side, which is used to this cash on delivery model, right? They will browse on my own website, they will go to Myntra, they will go to Amazon, they will go to my store, order from multiple places. Deepak mentioned about they ordering multiple sizes ki ek fit aa jayega, ek return kar dunga, right? These are the customers who typically, when you see and you dissect this, you will realize that 20% of these customers send back the product from their doorstep. They don't even try. They don't even accept 20%, right? There is another 35 to 40% of the customers who, after taking the product, send it back. So you're looking at 2 out of 3 customers who actually order on cash, don't really want the product or don't take the product. Now, as a brand, especially in the branded play, more often than not, I'm consistent in terms of my sizes, in terms of my fabrics, in terms of my quality, right? Which means that there is that 2 out of 3 customers who are playing a game and causing a leakage to my business, right? That's where we've drifted towards direction where we are very, very clearly disincentivizing these kind of behaviors, either by blacklisting customers who indulge in these practices, by disincentivizing COD, or incentivizing prepaid customers. These are the ones, and it impacts the size of the business, right? Your GMV starts, suddenly your GMV, which was growing at about 50% year on year, suddenly starts to taper down at 20%, 25%. But that's a hard call, and that's something that all of us have taken, that profitability is paramount and scale cannot come at the cost of profitability. So that's the lens that we are operating with, and that's really how we are playing the game.
Yes, I think in the mad rush for the initial customer acquisition, a lot of shady practices, or rather unclear practices came in. We encouraged a lot of behavior, and now we need to go back and change that behavior. Taking up from where you left off in terms of building scales, Vinay, how would you look at this building scale when you have so many touch points, and how do you try to focus on what do I need to build on?
So on scale, there are multiple strategies to it, and there are a lot of moving parts around it. What we did, I can take you through the journey. What we did to build scale over a short period of time. In our model, again, it's a grocery delivery, and grocery is something where the demand is everywhere. There is. I don't foresee a household who doesn't consume grocery. So it's the demand is in every household of grocery. That means the density is not a problem. Demand density would be there as long as we are right on the assortment, availability, pricing, and service. Consumers will come. CAC is relatively lower in this business, and to build a trust is relatively easier. There are some complex categories also: fruits, vegetables, non-vegetarian food, etc., which are non-branded, non-standardized, has a complexity in building the trust. But having said that, so with this context in mind, for us it was what was important for us was to identify the geos or hyper-local geos which will give us dense demands or denser demands. And how do we prioritize those geos? For example, like let me take a case of Mumbai. How do I build a geo identification algorithm where it prioritizes, say, Bandra or Powai over Palava? Just hypothetically, taking example, so we have a context around it. Because in this city, we know that Bandra is relatively upmarket geo, or say Kambala Hills is relatively upmarket geo, and we would want to prioritize that. And that now, how does it run into the algorithm where if I run it over all top 10 cities of the country, it automatically gives a priority order of the geos. This was one. So selecting the geos and where should I set up the store, right? So that's a network design. That's first. Second was now, if we are planning to launch say 1 store a day or 2 store a day, uh, then my entire hiring engine, training engine, launch engine has to be robust. So how do we build that engine in place? Like how will the hiring happen? Who will launch the stores? How will the training of the people happen, and how the store will scale? And here the complexity is threefold, because one is hiring of the leadership team of the store, which is the people who are managing the store. Then there is a hiring of associates who are doing the manual work in the store, and then the third is the last mile, where which is even more complex, because uh, getting getting the right set of riders at the right rate card, uh, so that you don't go overboard on the cost and all. And again, let me like give you the context here, is that the last mile of hyperlocal in this country is again a bit of spoiled mechanism, because a lot of cash was thrown in the past to address the surge in the demands, rather than solving it in the right way by right planning, right supply planning, right, using the right algorithms, using the right forecasting techniques. The money was used to solve that, and which is, we are trying to correct that piece now. That, no money will be thrown, no surges will be given. Let's get more accurate on our supply planning and forecasting. For example, 26 January we're going to run a sale. What will be my hourly order pattern at a store, city store combination, so that my hourly demand attainment and rider attainment has to match with each other. So, so, so we built those engines. We built the hiring engines. We built the training engines, uh, and we hired the leadership team first. So we went that way. That, get the leaders first, and let them hire their teams, and let them figure out how they want to operate in that. And then we went on kind of expanding the number of stores and the number of cities there. Now, while doing that, one thing which came very handy to us was, we had set up our control tower in very early days, when we had just 3 stores in Mumbai. We had set up the control tower because we knew that, neither I or my leadership team can actually take care of each and every order or each and every store. It's not humanly possible, right? We cannot work 18 hours a day every day. So it has to be a sustainable mechanism. So then that's where we set up a control tower. It's a small team, but then we started building tools for those teams, that they have a real-time visibility of what's happening across the board, and they have an exception flagging, that if a certain order is delayed by a certain threshold, then only it gets flagged to them. And they have a hotline with every store, so that with a click of a button, that they press the button and they are able to retrieve the store. And then we went double click of why the order is delayed. Is it a packing issue? Is it the SKU they are not able to find? Is it? So we started automating all those pieces, so that they have a real-time information also, the RCA of the order getting delayed, so that they can actually now help store rather than call them and ask them what happened. That, because what we realized was that those guys are already in problem, and asking them the questions is creating more problems for them. So the idea of the control tower flipped, that this has to be an enabler, not a mechanism which will frustrate people in the organization. So hence the real-time RCA should be available, so that they can tell them what exactly they should do. And so that's one mechanism. Second is planning function. So we knew very clearly through previous experiences that here the talent is the most important piece, that we have to get the right set of people who are academically trained in building these algorithms. There is no scope of, don't leave any scope of error. We cannot have a learning curve in this function, because the cost of learning in this function is very, very high. We'll end up sitting on piles and piles of inventory and we don't know what to do about it. Hence, we are very, very clear that this is one area where we will not compromise on talent. Slightly controversial, but 90% of our planning team comes from NITI. So that's where we indexed on that, because it's said to be mecca of planning, and that's what we knew, mecca of supply chain, and hence, we wanted to get folks from there. And we ended up having 90% of our team from there, and now we are going for diversification, that, now we can diversify because the base is already set. So hence the talent became critical. The third function was the whole buying and merchandising function, that there we were very clear that, again, learning curve will be very, very expensive. We want people who have experience, who have done this for their, bread and butter. So we got in people who got 20 years of experience, over 20 years of experience in doing buying and merchandising for either offline retail, online retail, or omni-channel, or even unrelated industry, say fashion or electronics, but who has in his DNA, his or her DNA, that how the buying and merchandising works, how the terms of trades are done, how the what kind of clauses should be there, how the trade margin negotiations are done. So because again, here the learning curve is expensive because you end up signing wrong margin, you have to suffer for the entire year with that. So that's essentially,
interesting.
And in this, one thing which was very very important was that we never hesitated to give a shout out for help. We went back to academicians, we went back to professors, we went back to consultants, uh, uh, and we went back to a lot of industry leaders within India and outside India as well, to basically understand, that at least figure out what are the don'ts in this business that we should not just do.
Good. Thanks. Vinay. In fact, Ankit, if I come back to you, one of the issues that I would also like to probably looking at is omni-channel essentially means channel surfing. And now you need to track consumer behavior across channels. What are the kind of tech challenges that you have had, and what is the kind of issues that you have had with understanding customer behavior now via channels? Because a large part of omni-channel is, again, customers behave differently in each channel.
Correct, Girish. So, what my role entails, or what supply chain in a typical FMCG entails, is like I said, we have a consensus forecast, which would be a forecast which the leadership buys, a forecast which the commercial team buys, the sales head of those particular omni-channel, etc., would be having a consensus upon. And then we just build our upstream production, we build our deployment, we maintain inventory levels. But what you are mentioning is a very valid point, that there were several complications which even the commercial team, like a simple planning process would happen. We will have a statistical baseline which is there. So we created a baseline using some AI/ML models and with the help of certain external consultants. And then we ask the commercial team to say what promotions, what activations are being planned, etc. You plug in the building blocks over and above that, and that would be the forecast that is going to be used. But like I said, it was failing miserably, especially for certain channels like Marketplace or for Zepto example, because it was very difficult to predict how it is going to go. So there was a brainstorming session which happened where we discussed that in this channel, at least, we cannot live with a overall channel level number. There has to be a customer level consensus number which has to come. And it has to come by segment of SKUs. The SKUs which have an overlap with a bigger traditional trade channel, no need to focus too much because we will not reach anywhere. We will manage it via replenishment or stock prioritization. But especially the bigger price point SKUs which were made for e-commerce, which were made for modern trade, is where we wanted absolute consensus from. And there we pushed the commercial team members to discuss with the customers like Zepto, like Big Basket, and we get a fair bit of idea on what they are planning for. So I would not have very much idea on how the sales team exactly plans differentiation of the offering on various channels. But this gave a lot of sanity to the supply chain, because we very clearly knew that there is a 2 kg Bonvita pack which only goes to e-commerce. Big Basket, Flipkart, etc. have, which contribute to 80%. They have given a forecast which they are broadly aligned to, which are big customers. And if we are able to get our stocks there, we will not lose out on service and not lose out on the sales opportunity. And for the longer tail, we will manage it via replenishment. So this is still a slow burn process because commercial team or the sales team also don't have a capability of forecasting, and it's always easy to crib rather than own the forecast. So it's a slow burn process which is happening in the organization. But this customer level focus is bringing a lot of execution flexibility or execution easiness to the supply chain, because today in cases of stock conflict also we use that as a reference to divide the stock rather than first come first serve.
Yes.
So we use those background principles and allocate and move on in order to maximize the fill rate. So that would be my point of view on that.
One of the challenges that comes anyway when it comes to planning, and when you start more talking about planning and forecasting as a function, is that most of us are so caught up with this one number philosophy. We need to have that one number which will align the entire organization. Somewhere that doesn't exist in reality. But still every month we insist on getting a number, which probably is also why we also need to break away from this deterministic kind of forecast to a more probabilistic or a range forecast, and let the sales and the teams choose the level of probability they want to operate in and what is the upside and downside to it. So probably we also need to do a little bit more of upskilling ourselves and in terms of understanding what those capabilities are, what those new things out there are able to do for us. We hear a lot of terms. Sometimes people say that forecasting is dead, and then they turn around and say, no, it can't be dead, because if I don't know what to make and if I don't know where to sell it, how am I going to even be prepared for anything? I might be wrong, but at least I need to have that idea of what am I going to do and what am I going to sell. Yes, we are on dot. I thank my panelists for having taken the time off and discuss something which is slightly more technical and something which people are still trying to make sense of. In all the conversations we have had with Omni-Channel, we have had a lot of people talking Omni-Channel, but very few people actually walking Omni-Channel. And that becomes a problem when with customers hopping channels, and how do I catch that particular customer, especially in a cash constraint environment. That becomes a lot more relevant. For some people, for all organizations, cash will be a constraint. I don't think any organization will say here is an unlimited budget. To that extent, yes, it is a reality which we live with, but for some people, it becomes survival. So I think those are what will determine what kind of channel strategies we will get off with. I thank you very much for having taken your time off. I would like to present a small memento before we break for the most important part of the day. Thanks, Abhishek. Thank you. Thanks, Nilesh. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Vinay. Thanks, Ankit. Thank you. Sir, group आगे आए पीछे रहे चले. It is his call.